So, my first guest of the new year, very excited to be back. And what a lovely guest to start things off. I'm so delighted and happy to chat to Michael of Michael. Hello.
Hi, how are you?
I'm good. How are you? How's it going?
I'm I'm doing well. Yeah, I we were kind of talking before this about just like going into this new year kind of with different energy. So
Yeah.
I'm very much just like trying to do that to the
Yeah.
best of my ability.
Yeah. The world's throwing lots, but you're holding on.
Yeah, for sure.
And
Yeah.
where do we find you in the world? Where are you?
I'm in New York City. I'm currently in my very tiny East Village apartment. It's like a little studio. And you see all my books, and there's Mickey Mouse back there. We have Jigglypuff over here.
Gorgeous.
Um, and yeah, so that's where we are, you
That's
know?
where I could just hear some New York traffic zooming by
Yeah,
as well.
yeah, totally. And sirens probably. You may hear
Yeah.
motorcycles, people yelling,
Mhm.
it's always something.
The classic New York scene.
Yeah. And wait, where are you again?
So I'm in London.
You're in London
So
now.
yeah, it's just south. Yeah, so I was in Scotland in the summer, back in my childhood village, but now I'm
Hmm.
back in London, so South London.
Nice.
And yeah, although it kind of feels like I'm here, kind of feels like I'm not here. We're like in
Hmm.
our third or fourth or fifth lockdown, whatever we're in right now. So kind of just, I feel like I'm in like a weird, like my room feels like a weird spaceship that I'm just like in, like floating around, and like I know the world's happening around
Hmm.
me through the internet,
Right.
but I'm just
Right.
like in this room.
Right.
Strange,
Right.
like.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I feel like we've all gotten so, I mean, like obviously when I was starting the call, I'd had like a background, but then I was like, I'm going to take it away because this is just real. Like,
Reveal.
I do live in my room now.
Yeah,
Like I really live here.
yeah, like that is
So
it.
yeah, you're right. Like you're living in that space. The world continues to be a mess,
Yeah.
and there you are.
And
So
you engage through these screens and things as well. Yes, it's
yeah,
odd, but I feel like we're yeah almost like getting used to it slightly.
yeah,
But like you're saying, the new year I feel brings a feeling of hope that
mhm,
somehow we have to hold on to, even if
mhm.
things take time to change themselves. But
I think so.
I think we gotta hold on to that. Gotta hold on to something for sure.
I think so.
So before we get into chatting a little bit about your sort of musical background, what you're up to and stuff, were you in the studio today? Is that right? Were you doing some recording? Did that
Y-
happen?
Yeah, so yeah, I was working on some new stuff.
How
I
did it
have
go?
really good, really good. We made like a really like cool new song that's like kind of it's like dark, it's poppy, it's I don't know, it's kind of strange. It's just like I'm always just kind of like knee deep in like whatever my inspirations are. And I don't know. It's cool. The demo came out sounding really great, so I'm excited to finish it.
Nice. And
Um, yeah.
are you kind of like a create in the studio person, or is it stuff that you bring that you've created before, or is it a bit mixture of both?
I always kind of bring stuff. I mean, sometimes I go to the studio and I'm like, I don't like, I want to kind of just start something right here, right now, organically. But usually I go into the studio with a pretty solid idea of like what I want to make. I'll always, at minimum, have like the melody and the lyrics together. And I'll be able to kind of like dictate, like, how I want it to sound. And I always have like a lot of sounds in my head, and I have like voice memos, and I'm like a voice memo queen. Like
Yeah.
I have like so. I mean, my iPhone, I'm always getting notifications about it being full because it's just like nothing but voice memos, basically. I have more of that than I think I do music on my like devices,
There
which
you
is
go.
interesting. Yeah.
Yeah,
So,
well, I don't know, it's like on the go inspiration though, I think as well.
hmm hmm
It's great. So just sorry, your microphone was hitting a little bit against your
Oh no.
zipper. It's all right there.
Okay.
That's fine. Just to pre-warn you.
Okay.
I don't know if
Maybe I'll
can you
just.
take the lovely hoodie off? Oh
Mm.
my goodness. This is the extras.
This is the extras.
You
This
have
is
to pay
the
for this.
this yeah. This is the OnlyFans
Yeah.
portion of the show.
we're, we're all one step away from doing an OnlyFans at any point.
I know. I know. Sometimes I feel that I'm like, just to make a little extra money. Do I need to show something? I don't
Yeah,
know.
yeah,
Maybe show
maybe.
something more than what I showed through my art.
Well, I feel like, if I'm going to do it, at least try and make some money from it.
Yeah,
Hey,
exactly.
you know, it's
It's
the
the
music
old.
industry is an interesting one,
It's the oldest. This also the oldest profession, as they
right?
say. So.
So there you go. That's got some value and history to it as well. um, so yeah, so you're in the middle or at the start maybe of creating a new album, which we can chat about a little bit more. But
Mhm.
let's take us back a little bit. So I know you from last year, and the first way I met you, I think, through many people that I met this year was through Quarantine, when you were co-hosting, I think, with Kisos, whenever that
Mhm.
was at some point in 2021.
Mhm. Mhm.
And then you released your album, a couple of singles, and your album over 2021. But yeah, so what was the kind of build up musically to that point for you? What was
You
that?
mean to the first release or to the
Yeah,
album?
to the first release of last year,
Hmm.
and then
Hmm.
getting the album together as well. Just give us a little
Sure.
journey if we're not familiar with
Y-
Michael of
For
Michael.
sure. So I had started working on this album kind of. I mean, I knew I wanted to make an album. I just didn't know like the form. I think this is true for a lot of people. Like I knew I wanted to make an album. I didn't know the form it was going to take or
Right.
how it would take shape, but it was just like something I'd always wanted to do. I'd, been making music since I was like 16, and I had kind of just put it off, but then I was like, you know what? I feel like now I'm older, I'm wiser, I have better taste.
Mhm.
I think I have more to say, so I'm just gonna go for it. And I started making demos with a friend, and then I let another friend of mine who's a musician. Her name's Maluka. I let her hear one of these demos. It was for the song that ended up becoming Orion.
Yeah.
And that really rough version, they call it, I guess, demoitis, when you like fall in love with like an old version of a song.
Uh-huh.
And you're like, I don't want it to change because and I keep hearing it the way it is and I can't imagine where it's gonna go.
Yeah.
So I was stuck in that place with that song. I was like, I love it. Like I should just release it like this. Now looking back, I'm like, oh my God, that would have been a mess. Like that would have been such a mess. So I definitely I'm glad I showed it to Maluka, who was like, we need to like redo this in a professional studio with, all the works,
Yeah.
good equipment, good mic, good like, interfaces, good technology.
Hmm.
And so it was me, her, and she brought in someone else she knew, this young producer named Rich De Silva, who became my main co collaborator on my album.
Yeah.
And so we made Orion there, and it just got me so excited about like what was possible. Rich had a home studio, and so I just started like sidebarring with him and having all these like meetings with him, and I think something about the momentum of just kind of seeing where my music could go just
Mm.
sonically got me really excited about like writing more. So I just
Hmm.
was writing and writing and writing. And also, Rich and I like shared a lot of like musical interests. Like, I think I'd said that I was into like, Nine Inch Nails and Bjork and like Arca and all these other people, and he was just like, oh, me too,
Yeah.
and like even like like a lot of early aughts, like, you know, heavy metal rock, like
Hmm.
System of a Down. And, you know, I
Oh,
was like
cool.
really into that stuff growing up and still am. And so I think that the fact that we were already able to kind of meet there in terms of our similarities musically and the things we were into just made for like a lot of really seamless collaboration. So we recorded a handful of songs together. And I knew I wanted to release a single at the start of 2020 because like I said, it started April like 2019 or
Okay.
something. And I knew I wanted to like release something in, you know, the first part of 2020. And I ended up kind of vetting it with friends, and I decided that rope would be
Hmm.
the coolest way to like introduce myself because um you know, I don't know what the hell people ever expect of me, but I would say that I think, you know, some people I've talked to since I've released music, they were like, "Oh, we thought you'd make like I don't know, we thought you'd make like a house party track or something like that."
Okay.
And not that I'm against that at all, but I just like love the idea of being like, you think I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna
Yeah.
do that, you know? Like I love subverting expectations. That's always been kind of my thing.
Mm. And even
And
within, I feel like within your one album, you sort of travel through so many mixtures of kind of genres and influences and tastes as well that you kind of do that in the album itself. You can't quite
mhm.
pinpoint a little bit, which is great. I love it.
Yeah, thank you.
Mm.
So Rope came out in February. Um, Obviously, I felt really good just about like getting that out. And you know, I never had any attachments to like, you know, releasing music and then how it would be received or like
Okay.
what people would say or how people would respond. I just knew that I needed to do it for myself. I knew that I needed to say this, and I thought that music was, you know, I was like, I'm not going to judge the way that this is coming out of me, you know,
Yep.
and therefore I'm not going to have any attachments to what people think once it's released. But you have to understand, like, some people are like, oh, it seems like that was so easy for you, and it's like it took me half my life to get to that
Yeah.
point. Like, you know, like I said, I've been making music since I was 16. I'm
Yep.
32 now. Like only at 31 was I able to be like, okay, I'm finally brave
Hmm.
enough to share what I've been working on all this time.
Hmm.
So,
Yeah, even those bits of music that sometimes I don't know if you find this, but they just appear. They just
mhm,
come into you, but obviously they've come from somewhere and from years probably of picking up bits here, thinking about ideas or inspirations, and then yes, there's a point when they come out. But yeah, it doesn't just it doesn't just come from nothing. It's from
yeah,
a long time of building up. So
exactly.
well,
Yeah.
it's amazing that you've yeah kind of got to that point, and I really like the idea of just uh, no expectations of how it might be received as well. And
Hmm.
I think I like having just kind of released an EP at the end of the year and kind of been doing singles for it as well. I feel thank you
Congratulations.
very much. Yeah, I don't know if you feel the same as well because a lot of it is you have to think about it with your kind of marketing and promotion hat on as well, and that just takes
Hmm.
a lot of time. But I feel like now it's almost like I'm like, oh, okay, like that's done now, and it can be what it is, and it can just be received however it's going to be received. And I
Hmm.
feel like I've opened up a bit of space now, starting into this year, to be a bit more creative again and think about
Yeah.
some new things. Is that how you feel like thinking about your next album as well?
I feel like yes, but I also feel like it's just that's like the work of like an artist is like, you know, I think I'll always have a job, you know, like
Mm,
if I think about the idea, you know, okay, a friend of mine told me who is like a professional songwriter, he told me I think I was telling him I was getting like really kind of like hung up on I did have a moment where I started to think a little bit about like how my songs were performing compared to peers, and I was
Right.
looking at streaming numbers way too much, and
Yeah.
it was all like kind of making me crazy.
Hmm.
And I was telling him about this, and he was just like, well, girl, he was like, I mean, there's really no such thing as a flop, because if you just keep, he was like, hopefully you have more songs in you. Hopefully this isn't the end,
Yeah.
Like, and he was like, so just keep making songs. And it's so simple, but it's like really powerful
Mm.
advice. And I just feel like, yes, just keep making songs. Like, no matter what, just keep making songs. And if I do that, then I'll always have a job. I'll always have work to do.
Yeah.
If I keep living my life, I'll always have a song. And so for me, it's just that simple. It's like I'm just living my life, and there are so many stories that I didn't tell on XO that I'm willing to tell now, and
Yeah.
and that journey will just hopefully continue. I see it continuing, and
That's great.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah. No.
I don't feel blocked.
Hmm. Yeah, and that's a really good way to think about it as well. And just
Hmm.
yeah, you just keep on producing it, and however it kind of responds as well. And like, yeah, living your life is how you end
Hmm.
up creating stuff anyway.
Yeah.
And so you're in speaking about living your life and thinking about kind of last year as well. So you were out of New York for a little bit last year. Now you're
Yeah.
back.
Hmm.
Has Do you see that kind of changing again this year, or how? Yeah, how do you feel that might go?
I think what I can say is that, like, so I left New York to go work on a farm out west, and I was there from June until September,
Mm-hmm.
which was it was a really nice respite from kind of like the pandemic in
Mm-hmm.
a way, because I was not hearing about it as much because I was in like rural America, and I was like working with like, sheep and like ducks, and like, I had like limited contact with people. And I was like, caring for plants, and I was, you know what I mean? I was just learning how to grow my own food. And, it was a really like holistic experience that I think took me, it both made me more aware of what was happening in the world in sort of this like
Mm-hmm.
spiritual way almost. And it also took me away from kind of the everydayness of like bad news, and
Yeah.
the 24-hour news cycle, and how damaging that can be when you're just
Mm-hmm.
like tuned into that all the time, especially in a place like New York, which is like, I think, a capital of like information and media.
Yeah.
So it was so beautiful to sort of have that respite from the pandemic, and then kind of like sort of come back to New York sort of resettled and
Mm-hmm.
refocused. And I think that all of that experience is finding its way into my work now.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, farming, gardening, permaculture, landscape, caring for the earth, these are all things that I care deeply about. So I definitely see myself taking like more adventures like those. I don't know exactly where, I don't know exactly what form or what shape it's going to take yet, but um I mean, I feel like, as long as we have a planet to care for, I'm going to be seeking out those kinds of experiences. And eventually, I'd love to have my own farm and my own
Mm-hmm.
piece of land someday. So that's a goal of mine
Yeah.
as well.
No, that's great. And do you think that would be in America, or would you look
Ooh,
elsewhere?
interesting
dreaming,
question.
dreaming big.
Yeah, no, interesting question. I mean, I have always wanted to like live in London or Paris, and and I've also always thought about what it would be like to have like a farm in the French countryside. I don't know. I feel like I never want to say like definitively like I know exactly like geographically, Jesus, geographically like
Yeah.
where I'm gonna end up. But I feel like, I don't know. I really am a person who like, and I don't know. You're You're also a Cancer, right? I
I
feel
am
like
indeed. Yeah.
yes. So, okay. So I think you can relate to what I'm about to
Mhm.
say. I think as Cancers, we're people who like sort of live guided by intuition rather
Mhm.
than like being overly strategic about every single decision.
Yeah.
Obviously, strategy does play a role in like, I think how people like us live our lives. But I
Mhm.
think like, I'm really a person that's just guided like mostly by intuition, which is hard to explain because a lot of people, no shade, but I just don't, a lot of people don't have very close touch with that. And,
Yeah.
you know,
I feel like I've yeah, explored perhaps that bit of me is even more. I think because I've had to spend so much time by myself.
yeah,
Um, I am like, oh well, I guess I can just like listen to myself and rely on myself a little bit more. Um,
yeah,
so can you explain one thing to me about Cancerians,
yeah,
which I've always wondered, just on this topic? So
yeah.
when I was growing up, I always told that Cancer was like homely or the home or whatever.
Hmm.
But I kind of do feel that about myself, but I also feel that I kind of like we're just talking about here. I feel that my home can actually be could be anywhere, and that I feel that
Yeah.
I can almost feel at home quite easily if there's certain things. I don't know what those certain things are, but I feel that I can kind of take my home with me in different places. Is that right?
I think I agree. Well, I would agree with that. And I would also say this is so corny, but I think it's like they say like home is where the heart is. And I feel
Mhm.
like if cancers had any kind of like universal saying, I think it would be that. It's like
Okay.
home is where the heart is. And I feel that's why I always wear this. But I feel like, wherever you go, there you are, and you can create a home wherever you are. And I also think
Makes sense.
that cancers are extremely adaptable creatures. So
Mm.
I think, some people really just like things to be only a certain way, and that's the only way they'll take
Right.
it. And I would say I've always felt like that's been one of my biggest strengths is I tend to be quite quite the shapeshifter.
Mm.
um, and obviously I can't make a home out of anything, but and like you said, like certain elements have to be present,
Yeah.
probably like certain kinds of security, whether that's emotional or financial
Yeah.
or whatever, or spiritual. But I think I love the idea of like planting down roots wherever I end up,
Mhm.
and just kind of letting that be like a very like free flowing process.
Yeah. Yeah. Completely. No,
Yeah.
I'm here for that, and I'm just thinking more and more about that as well. And I think also
Hmm.
um with creating music, I don't know if there's the same kind of thing in America, but so in the UK, in like the terms of the music scene, it was always that thing of like if you wanted to make it, you had to live in London or at least a
Hmm.
big city, but kind of
Hmm.
particularly London. But I
Hmm.
feel that this last year has kind of just like blown that out the window, and actually more and more it's online. You can kind of create things yourself
Hmm.
or with people, but in a much more DIY way, and actually there is no need to be in certain places
Yeah.
to be that kind of creative. Is there a same kind of
Yeah.
feeling with like you must be in New York, or
Hmm.
is that
Um,
changing?
I don't know. I would say you know what? I'll say that I love New York so much. I've been here a long time.
I'd love to live in
But
New York as well. So
oh, I love it. I love it. I love it. I mean, there's just no place like it. And even during the pandemic, like I said, I think one thing that helps you appreciate New York, a place like this that sort of demands so much of you all the time, is to be able to get away from it for
right.
periods of time and come back. And
Mm-hmm.
then you kind of realize what you've been missing.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but that's also how a lot of people never leave. So, I don't want to say I'm going to be here until I die, but I definitely feel like I could just see myself with like a lifelong connection to New York of some
Mm.
kind. Um, and it's just like where, I mean, I'm from Chicago and from Indiana. Like I have roots there, but
Mm-hmm.
like this is where I have felt truly the most at home, and it's where
Mm-hmm.
I feel I've grown the most. So it just holds such significance for me in that way. And also my closest like relationships in terms of my like my friends and my chosen family, they're all
Yeah.
here, you know. Um, but I don't know. I mean, also the world is a big, beautiful, strange, crazy place. So
You know,
I
yeah.
don't want to. I don't want to like contract myself to one place forever.
Yeah, completely. But yeah, I get that. I think I feel the same about London in a way that it's, even if I do move on, and I will, I'm sure I will.
Hmm.
I feel like I've planted something here that is I can always kind of come back to.
Well, and
I hope.
it's also like an incredible like creative community, like you
Mm.
know. And there's the thing of access. Like it's so important to have access to that community, you know. And I
Yeah,
think that's what's so great about a lot of major cities is you can plug in right away,
yeah,
you know.
exactly. Yeah, no,
Yeah.
definitely. So, thinking about this year ahead, then. So there's an album in the works. Do you have like quite a set kind of goal in terms of like when that might come out, or is it a bit more? Let's see what happens.
I think so, I let's see. I mean, I have about oof, like 12 or 13 songs like in various stages of
Mhm.
completion. And I don't know, I've just been working so quickly and so much, and I think I have, like I did go through a period in my late 20s where I felt like I had like really intense writer's block, and I felt like I'd completely run out of ideas and I didn't have anything else to say. But I feel like now I almost have the opposite problem of like, which is such a good problem to have. I feel so blessed to be like, oh my God, I can't stop writing. Like, what a luxury issue, you
Yeah,
know? So I feel like that's kind of been what's been happening. And I've been thankfully able to work really quickly with people who are like amazing and like supportive and like make time and space for me and also like see where I'm going and want to contribute. Like, so I'm really grateful for that. But yeah, I think yeah, I have like maybe like 13 songs done so far. And I think my goal right now is to just record as much as I can until a predetermined date, and then just kind of go back through and see what I have, and then edit and do that whole thing
yeah,
sequence and see what comes together most cohesively, and then I'll plan a date,
yeah.
um,
Take it from
and a
there.
and a rollout strategy and all that stuff, which is
Yep.
like fun for me and also like not, it's fun because I think of that as an extension of my
Yeah,
creativity, you know,
that's a good way to
having,
think of it. I think.
yeah, I do. And also like having worked in media, so I do have that advantage. Like I
Yes.
sort of understand how to
Mhm.
package things on some level.
Yeah.
But I'm so enjoying just like making songs, and I can't believe I have this many already.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, like I
Yeah.
said, a good problem to have.
Hmm. A
And
thousand percent.
yeah, and are there any other projects other than music on the go in this year or coming up? You strike
Mm,
me as a very, yeah, just creative in
like
many
a
ways.
multidisciplinary person.
Yeah.
Um, yes, yes. I I feel like maybe I shouldn't talk about them yet, but they do involve writing. Um, and
Because that's your background in media and writing as well, right?
Yeah, and also like creative writing, and I've always been like, I feel like I feel like that's the one thing about me that even if people like, you know I think I've said this before, but it's like I really don't give a shit what people think about my voice or anything like that. I feel, but I do care if people pay attention to my words and my stories, because that
Hmm.
to me is like the most important thing, is that like I have a message and that I have stories to tell.
Yeah, absolutely.
um and so I always think of myself as like a writer first,
Okay, right, yeah.
And music is like, like a way of writing,
Mhm.
and so it's a powerful channel to get out your ideas too.
Mhm.
But yeah, so they involve like my future plans involve different kinds of writing that I'll be able to elaborate more on
Mhm.
soon.
Okay. There's that media training coming out. Just
Yeah.
like a
I like soon being coy.
yeah. Follow me for more updates.
Yeah, seriously. Yeah. But it's
No, it's
exciting.
great.
I have I what I can say is that I definitely have something really special coming. Ooh, very soon. Like
Mm.
very, very, very soon.
Well,
Um,
keeping us on our toes. That's
yeah, that's all I'll say about
good.
that. But I think it's gonna be really interesting.
Mm.
It'll be
Well,
interesting
I
to
can't
see how
wait.
it's received, and even, you know, putting it out, but it'll be interesting.
Well, excited for whatever is coming ahead. I'm sure it's going to be really interesting and really great to see. Um,
Thank you.
Speaking of your songs, we're going to be playing one on the show. So
Yes.
we've picked Apple. Is that right?
Yes, Apple.
Tell us a little bit about Apple.
So Apple is, I guess you could think of it as like a promotional single. Like I released it a month after EXO, my debut. So I released Apple in last September, and it's so far the plan is to include it on my next album. And I kind of wanted to release it as like a precursor of what's to come.
Mm-hmm.
And what I like about it is that it's it doesn't it's so different from like the my debut in a way, but then it also doesn't give you any inclination as to exactly where I'm headed. So I
Mm-hmm.
also like that. Like there's an element of mystery about that song,
Yeah.
that I really appreciate. But that song was written while I was in Washington, and that's where I was, out on the farm.
Mm-hmm.
But I wrote that, just in thinking about like, um, ancestry and where we all come from, and sort of sacrifices made for us to be here, and the desire to kind of connect to our roots as a way to kind of bring us closer together,
Mm-hmm.
and how we're all just kind of like seeds that come from like the same apple tree. And I wanted to kind of like personalize that by singing about my own desire, to have that connection. So I wrote it with, Jesse St. John, and I produced it with, Rich De Silva, and it just, at the time I'd been listening to like a lot of, sort of like indigenous, like sort of like tribal sounds, and voodoo music, and I just was thinking a lot about like odd time signatures, and
Mm-hmm.
um,
Love an odd
you
time signature.
I love an odd time signature, and I love things that sort of sound intentionally offbeat, because in certain cultures, like they don't like when they make music sort of as like a free flowing form of expression. They're not, thinking about this very like, everything has to be at a 4/4
Fours
on
and
the
four.
beat,
Yeah.
on the beat. It's like it's just like it just has its own sense of pace, and that's what I love, that I think that comes across in that song. Like it kind of has its own energy entirely. And
Definitely. It's very, yeah,
but
it feels very meditative kind of in my
hmm
mind. And like you can
yeah,
kind of get lost in it.
totally, and that's what I want. And I want it to be, um I mean, people have described it as like haunting, and I'm glad if that's what people take from it. If people feel that it's meditative, that's great too. For me, it's just like it is like a contemplation. It's like an acknowledgement of my ancestors and their sacrifices, and I also think like as a this is, another thing. It's like as a Black person, I think, you know, connecting to ancestry, especially in America, where
Mm-hmm.
our history has been just, kind of disrupted by slavery. It's so important for me to kind of be expressing a
Mm-hmm.
desire to connect to my past in a way that is removed from historical trauma,
Mm-hmm.
Um, I think that that is a statement in and of itself, and and the idea of it sort of being this metaphor about an apple tree and how apples grow,
Yeah.
um, and how seeds sprout. Like, that to me is about connecting to the earth and being rooted.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and that's also like an acknowledgement of like where I feel my ancestors have come from. They were farmers, they were people who were stewards of land, and they treated it as a sacred space. And that's actually something I hope humanity can do
Mm-hmm.
collectively, because we like need to, like,
Yeah.
because climate
Mm-hmm.
change is, it's not this far away thing, it's right
No, it's
here,
today.
it's happening right now,
Mhm.
so we have to find ways to come together. And I think that kind of starts with going back and examining our ties to ancestry, to spirit, to the earth, etc. So
Yeah, no, it's amazing, and I think like you said, I can definitely see the writer in you as well, and also the ability to discuss topics that are really important to you and also to the world as well, like racism and your heritage and what's going on in the world right now and being sustainable and all this kind of stuff that you bring into your music
mm,
in the way that you explain it, but then also it's such a good vehicle because someone might listen to that song and not have heard any of this explanation, and they'll pick
mhm,
up something from it,
mhm,
which they might get into it a little bit, like what you're talking about, or they might just find something different in it as well. And I think that's
mhm,
a beautiful thing about music in and of itself.
mhm, I think so too. Yeah.
Yeah. Well,
You
thank you
can
so
say the
much.
most complex things with music.
Yeah, exactly. The most, yeah, and everyone's going to experience it in different ways as well. I guess that, yeah,
Hmm.
that's the great thing about art, I would say.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for sharing a little bit of
Hmm.
background on that song, and
Yeah.
I'm very honored to be playing it on the Dream
Yes.
and on Spotify as well. Um, well, thank you so much for coming to chat to me. Lovely first guest of 2021.
Thank you, Venn.
And I hope that we'll meet in real life at some point somewhere.
I'm sure we will.
I'll find that French farmhouse. My brother lives in France, so I'll get on.
Really?
I'll get onto that for you. Yeah,
Okay,
you've
amazing.
got
Thank
you've got an
you.
N there already.
Amazing. Okay, perfect. So my
Sorry.
farm's going to be in France, everyone.
Yeah,
You heard it
this is
here
the
first.
news. Yeah, coming to you from
Yes,
France
I
sometime soon.
know. Thank you. I,
Great.
I hope I hope that when things, open up a bit more, I'm hoping to make it out to London. I'd love to hang out,
Well,
have a coffee or tea or something.
indeed, all that stuff. You'll be more than welcome.
Okay, amazing.
Well, thank you so much, and yeah, all the best with producing the album this year, and
Thank
exciting news whenever we may hear it of
you.
other things.
Yes. Thank you. Thank
Great,
you, Venn.
thank
I
you so much.
appreciate you. All
Thank
right.
you. Bye bye.
Bye.